I'm good by the grace. I
Okay.
hope you all find that.
Yeah. And I'm sure you listened to Dr. Baumia, and you have also listened to the finance minister, and emphasis on
Yes,
the gold board, among others. What's working for this
yes.
government?
So before I come to before I come to what is working or what is not working, we have to look at why the CD constantly keep depreciating most of the time. Now, you see, it's a matter of demand and supply. Let's take it from that side. And then the other components or the other factor is as to whether or not when you need the currency, which is the dollar, it will be available for you or to you. So if the demand is outpacing the supply, it means that your currency will be depreciating. It means you don't have enough FX or enough foreign currency, in this case, the dollar, to meet the demand for your people or for your importers and external obligations. So we need to understand it from that level. Now, what usually happened in the past, especially, let's take it from when the Baumia regime took over. So when they took over, what they usually do is that they go to the market, the loan market or the bonds market, to go and then float bonds. The bonds are usually dispersed in dollars. So they use those dollars to come and then show up the cedi or the currency. Now, so you realize that at the early stages of their regime, they usually tout the performance of the cedi as one of their achievements, to the extent that Baumia says he arrested the cedi and the uh, he locked it in jail or something and handed the key to the IGP. Then until the crisis began in 2022, when the cedi depreciating went haywire to that level. Now, when we fast forward to today, then the issue of whether the gold purchase program, the bond and whatnot, in the whole gold purchase program by Bank of Ghana started somewhere May 2023 exactly. So the build up started actually in June 2023, all the way till they left. So they accumulated basically about 20 something tons by the time they were out of office, which means that on average, year on year, between 2023 and 2024, they accumulated on average at least 10 tons of gold each year. Now, the question anybody will ask is, between that period, 2023, the cedi didn't appreciate against the dollar. It continued depreciating. 2024, similar thing happened. So if the claim is that because we accumulated enough gold to show up, or the reserve or whatever it is, that's why the cedi is now performing. Why didn't the cedi perform in 2023 when they started accumulation? Because they've accumulated even more than what was already there. We have about 8 point something tons of gold before the accumulations the Bank of Ghana purchase started. So even if at the end of the year that they accumulated additional at least 10 tons of gold, it's more than what was already there before they started. In 2024, the same thing happened. So why didn't the cedi appreciate if that exactly is the factor? Now, this is the reason why we keep talking about our international reserves. The international reserves have various components. We have the gold reserve component of it. We have the foreign currency or the foreign exchange reserve component of it. We have our international assets as part of our international reserve. We have some of the securities and the bonds that we also invest in out there as part of our international reserve. Then we have the special drawing rights that we have with our international partners, like the IMF and those people. And then we equally have any loan that we contracted internationally that comes in, goes into the reserve before it is disbursed. I hope you are following. So
Yes.
now, you the component of the reserve which usually supports the currency or your currency mostly is the most liquid one, which is the foreign exchange reserve or the foreign currency reserve.
Okay.
It means that one is there. So as and when your balance of payment is not adding up or is running into deficit, you can easily fall on it to use to settle your obligations. So as and when, let's say, importers needed currency or foreign currency, you can easily fall on those ones to build it. So what Bawumia and Co were doing then was that while they were concentrating on building the gold reserve, which is not readily liquidable or liquid at the time, they were not focusing on building the foreign exchange or foreign currency component of the reserve. I hope you get that particular aspect well.
Yes.
So yes, they started that they've built the gold reserve. But what about the foreign exchange component, the foreign exchange reserve component of it? That's what they were not doing. So when this government came in, they quickly realized or they knew that that component is also equally important for the stability of the currency or appreciation of the currency.
Okay.
So that's when they introduced the gold board to mop up or to start also, sending in more gold out there to buy, in exchange of more foreign currency. Don't forget, in doing that, they've not neglected, what do we call it, the gold purchase for the reserve as well. They continue building it because within the first quarter, they were almost building up to about a ton, which is within the parameters of what the Bawumia regime was doing. So that's why the difference in short is that when the Bawumia regime believed that the only solution to building up the foreign exchange reserve is to go and then borrow or go to the Euro bond market or international bond market to borrow to show up the currency, this regime believes that no, there are other innovative ways of doing that without necessarily burdening the Ghanaian people with a lot of debt.
I see.
You see the difference. So when this government is equally building up the gold reserve component of our international reserve, they are also focusing on building the foreign currency or the foreign exchange reserve of our international reserve as well. That's why even they ended up over exceeding the IMF target.
Okay.
A target that the Bawumia regime didn't, achieved to talk about exceeding. But this government was able to do it. How did they do it? They did that by, propping up or quickly building up the international, the foreign exchange currency component of the reserve. And once that is there, the market really already knows that yes, as and when we need a foreign currency or foreign exchange, we can easily get it. It will not run out. So the no supply is outstripping demand as we currently speak.
Oh, okay.
So the difference in policy direction is what is telling. That's why technically they've accumulated more gold reserve than this government. This government had just, let's say, an average about 1 ton so far. So that's why, despite the fact that they accumulated so much of gold reserve, the currency was still depreciating because they didn't have the foreign exchange component of it to show up the cedi. But this government is doing that without necessarily over borrowing in the international bond market or borrowing in the international bond market or the syndicated loans that the Bawumia regime usually, employ to do that. So to Bawumia, because this government is not going to borrow to show up the cedi, it means that they don't have any other way of doing that. But the governor and then the minister is showing that no, there are other innovative ways of building up your foreign exchange reserve other than just going to the international bond market to go and borrow or going to the syndicated market to go and borrow.
When does the matter of the weaker dollar come in? Because that's one of the arguments. He is not the only one he's made. In fact, the argument that his party has carried.
Yes.
Where
the
does it come in at all?
Dollar. it may come in, but it is very minuscule, as in it's very minute. Here is why. The data doesn't support whatever claim they are making. Take any of that. You can go on, as we speak, you can go on the EX. That's one of the major foreign exchange data analyst, sites. When you take any of the currency, apart from the Chinese yuan, and then probably the South African rand, all the major currencies are not, depreciating the way they are portraying it. Yesterday, he used the Zambian kwacha. I hope you listen to that aspect of it,
Yes,
that is
yes.
equally appreciated. But go online, check the performance of the kwacha against the dollar. While the Cedi appreciated almost about 22% against the dollar for the past 1 month, kwacha only appreciated just about 4.1% against the dollar.
I see.
So you can't say, when you take the what do we call it, the pound sterling.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the pound sterling; it's virtually stable, about 0.18 thereabouts percent appreciation against the dollar. When you take the euro, the dollar for the past 1 month, actually the dollar is actually outperforming the euro. When you take on the average, when you take the Turkish lira, for instance, it's actually even worse. The dollar has actually appreciated all the way throughout the period against the lira. Let's come to our domestic, the West African sub-region as well. Take the CFA franc, the same thing. Take the Nigerian naira, the same thing. So they are just throwing out a lot of things which are not factual and which are not backed by any data to throw that into the eyes of the people as a way for some level of speculation to reverse the gains that this government is making, which is very disingenuous of them, actually. You have access to the internet. You have access to all those foreign exchange data analytic, sites. Just take any of them. Apart from the Chinese one, that one you can say that because they are directly involved with the trade war with US, so it's understandable. Take the Japanese yen, for instance. The dollar has appreciated against the Japanese yen throughout the period, or at least for the past 1 month. So what exactly is about which currency, apart from those two that I stated, the South African rand and then the Chinese yuan, which other currency? Because the kwacha he mentioned, the data doesn't support that. So which other currency are they referring to actually? So they are just struggling with the fact that they don't know, or they didn't know that, or until now, that you could actually use other ways of building up your foreign exchange reserve other than going to the Eurobond market to borrow, take a percentage of it, going to the syndicated loan market to borrow and take a percentage of it. At the end of the day, burden the Ghanaian people with, huge debt, and then yet your currency will continue depreciating. That is the difference in policy.
And let me conclude by asking you on a separate matter, because the BOG had indicated that they have started their monetary policy committee meetings. The last time they met, I think they inched up the policy rate to a 20%.
Yes.
In fact, it's traders who are looking for reasons not to reduce their prices usually tend to the cost of borrowing. With inflation now relatively 21%, and then with the Cedi now doing better, do you think it's time to reduce the policy rate?
No, I don't think so. If you do that, it means that the gains you are making with inflation, you are likely bound to reverse it. Yes. So in the time of cost of doing business or cost of borrowing and all that, you can then encourage them that, look, because the Cedi is performing better, you are making a bit of gain from that side. So manage it until we are able to, manage inflation downwards to a little bit to below, let's say, 20% before we lower the monetary policy rate. If you rush in lowering the rate now, you risk the chance of inflation going up again, because at this point, there will be there is still enough liquidity in the system, which is offsetting the balance of what fiscal policy or what Ministry of Finance is doing in terms of the treasury market or the treasury bill market, because they've reduced the rate so far because of demand and supply. A lot of people because the rates were that high, a lot of people were going to the treasury market. So naturally, the rates will fall. So when the rates fall, a number of people no longer look at it that it is viable for them to keep investing in the treasury market or treasury bill market. So they will withdraw their money. Now, there are two things they can do: either to invest it in gold, which has a very stable and even appreciating price, or they can decide to hold the money until they look for a more favorable instrument to put it in. So if you are not careful and then you run again, that all those liquidity are in the system. When I talk about liquidity, I'm talking about money in circulation. They are in the system. So if you don't know and then or you are not careful, you go and then start lowering the monetary policy rate, you risk the chance of increasing inflation once more, or the rate of inflation once more. So I don't think that BOG, the best they will do is actually stabilize or maintain the rate as it is. If anything at all in a way of reduction will be seen, then probably some 50 percentage points, which is 50 basis points, which is will drop it to, let's say, about 27.5. But even that, I don't see it really happening. They shouldn't actually. They shouldn't. They shouldn't. They should maintain it for another cycle. Let inflation drop below 20%. Then start entrenching this below 20% before they think about actually lowering. Because now at this point,
fall below 20%.
Yes. Okay. Because at this point, you may talk about a bit high. Even now, the reference rate is still lower than the policy rate. The reference rates, when I checked, I think GCB, if I'm not mistaken, is around 23-24% thereabout. So I don't think it's too high like that for them to complain, especially when they are making a lot of gains on the Cedi side or the dollar side. So they can balance it out for some time, or at least for one quarter, and then you can now think about lowering it when inflation now drops below 20%.
Yeah, interesting point.
So for now, I don't see it happening.
Interesting point of view, because I recall at the last press conference, the governor of the Bank of Ghana says that as far as they are concerned, inflation is still uncomfortably high. Not a lot of change has been seen there.
Exactly. So, and also, I don't expect them to also increase it again. That will also be a bit more counterproductive. So I think for now, they can maintain it as where it is. That would be the best option for now.
Those discussions will be going on at the Bank of Ghana, and ultimately we hear from the MPR Monetary Policy Committee, MPC Monetary Policy Committee, on Friday. Yes,
that's true. That's true.
Well,
and I'm very sure they are looking at all the dynamics, but we shouldn't expect any drastic change at all. If there will be any, it shouldn't be more than 50 basis points. That one but I don't see any change at all. I don't.
Well, Albert, thank you very much for the clarification.
Thanks so much for having me as well.
Albert Wotorgbui, Head of Research, Center for Socio-Economic Studies, join us, help us understand exactly what is happening with the Cedi matter, and also what will happen with the MPs.